Been thinking about selling on eBay, maybe to make a few extra bucks, but you're not sure whether you should do that or maybe just go out and get a part-time job? Well, we're going to talk about that very subject today. Welcome to the Prof Sales YouTube channel. I am Prof Sales, so I am glad to see you guys. This channel is all about buying and selling, mainly selling, on e-commerce platforms like eBay, Amazon, and so on. Starting a business for yourself, being an entrepreneur, and having this nice little positive corner of the internet. My sidekick, Kaaren, is not here with me today, unfortunately, but she'll be back. So don't fret. Mr. Thingy is in the background, whatever he is, or it is. And we're glad that you're here on the channel. So there's a live chat going right now. And you can absolutely join us on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But if you don't catch the replay, that's perfectly fine. Leave me a question or comment. Love to hear from you, just what you thought of the show. If you had a specific question or comment, I'd love to hear it. And last but not least, before we jump into the rest of the content, down below this player, you're going to see a little button, not the like or dislike button. That's fine if you see that one. But there's another button there. It says share. Please click that share button. Share this video with somebody you think might be interested in this topic. It's going to create a little link. You can post it on your social media, post it on your Facebook page, wherever you like to interact with social media. We all do these days, it seems like. So just share the video and let other people see, maybe something that will help them too. I hope it does. So thank you very much for that. All right, one quick thing. Must grab water. My CPA just left, Jared. So if you haven't got a chance to check out his channel, it's Mr. CPA. And he was actually coming by to pick up some. We were just talking, so I was a little bit late getting started. But I'm here now, and we're rolling. I've got my water. I'm ready to go. Hope you guys are. And we're going to talk about this subject today. This subject to me is kind of different. And I just want to preface it by saying, I don't know why you want to sell on eBay. I don't know why you want to work a job. I have no idea. Water, no whiskey. Yeah, no whiskey. I don't know if I'd make it through the hour if it was whiskey. But you have some reason for deciding you want to sell on eBay, or maybe you want to go get a part-time job and make a few bucks. I don't know what your reasons are. We all have different reasons, but a very common reason is people want to make a few dollars for, say, maybe they want to save it up for a rainy day. If disaster strikes, they need some extra income or they need some extra capital. Maybe you want to take a vacation. You want to go maybe yourself or maybe you and the family, and you want to go somewhere cool and enjoy that, and it's just a little bit beyond your current income capabilities. Or maybe you just got a bunch of extra expenses as of late, or you're going to have extra expenses and you're trying to be proactive and, tackle it and say, all right, I got these extra expenses. I got to bring more dollars in the doors so that I can pay for those things. So it's all kinds of reasons that you might be doing this, right? But whatever the reason is, your time is by far the most valuable, precious commodity you have, right? We all only have a certain amount. And so you got to decide where you're going to spend it. And people are saying in the chat, Michelle says she's going to give her husband a check at the end of the year to pay off the house. That's terrific. What a terrific goal. Saying, here you go, done, fini. That's awesome. And you're like, oh, no more mortgage payments for us. That's amazing. Kelly does it so she can stay home with her 2 babies. I mean, you guys are coming up all kinds of reasons here, but a lot of them, come back to time. Like if you're spending your time to make money to pay off your mortgage, well, maybe you can resell things and pay off that mortgage. And now you've freed up that time. Or you can stay home with your children instead of going to work. Again, all kinds of reasons. But I don't want to get into whether or not your reason is good or bad, or the right reason. I only know that. Beth does it to calm her OCD. That's cool. I don't know. I think sometimes it makes me OCD, but in your case, hey, if it helps you out with that, absolutely do it. So I thought I would spend a little time, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat too, or if you're watching later, a comment about this idea about your, why maybe you'd want to sell, which we've talked about before on this channel, but what are some of the positives and negatives we see here? And I hate the words positive and negatives for some ways, because a lot of what we think is positive or negative is just really perception. It's not real. There's nothing real about it. It's just how we perceive a situation. But let's say that you want to sell, you think about selling on eBay. So let's talk about some of the positives of maybe, selling on eBay to meet whatever this goal is. Maybe it's an income goal. Maybe it's a savings goal. Maybe it's to save up to pay off a mortgage or go on a trip, or so you don't have to, leave the house, whatever it is. eBay is variable and controllable in the times of the time and energy you put into it. You get to decide if, all right, I'm going to spend an hour working on eBay today. You can do that. You don't have to spend 2 hours or 3 hours. There's no time clock. There's no set schedule. You know that certain things take you a certain amount of time to do. Maybe you set some goals for yourself and say, well, I want to get these things accomplished and it's going to take this long. That's fine. But ultimately, you have the power to decide how much time and energy you're going to put into this. It's up to you. If you don't feel like working on eBay today, don't do it. Sometimes, maybe you think, well, I have to do it. I don't know that you ever have to do it. You just think you do. But ultimately, it's very controllable. You get to decide how much time and energy and when you put it into eBay, which is pretty cool, right? So I think that's a great positive. Next up, you can scale eBay up to a fairly large source of income if you want. Now, I don't know what you think is a fairly large source of income, but, short of like ridiculous income and sort of ridiculous income, eBay can get you there. I mean, if you wanted to make $5,000 a month, absolutely. If you want to make $10,000 a month, for sure, absolutely. 15 or 20, you can get there. If that's a goal, if that's an objective of yours. But maybe you don't even want that. Maybe you just think, you know what, an extra $200 or $300 a month would really make a big difference in my stress level, in my financial situation. So I'm just going to try to get to that first and then just take it from there. Absolutely doable. When people say, do you think I can make this much? They'll say to me sometimes, Prof, do you think I can make this much on eBay? My answer is 99% of the time, yes. Can you? Yes. Will you? That's a different question. But can you? Of course you can, because you're not really limited. So that's another great positive of selling on eBay. I think another positive may be that this may end up becoming full-time for you. Now, why do I call that a positive? Well, it's because of the first two reasons. You control the way in which you run your eBay selling. You also can control how much money you want to eventually pull out of it. And because you can do things to affect those things. And it takes time and energy for sure. It doesn't happen overnight. But it's not, it doesn't have to be a part-time gig. You can make eBay full-time if you want. And then you have those advantages that you don't necessarily have with a different type of job. That's up to you. Some people would say, I would never want eBay to be full-time. Prof, that's just way too much work and whatever. If that's the case, then that's perfectly fine. You got to decide what's worth your time and energy, and I can't give you that. But ultimately, if you want it to be a full-time gig and you don't want to work for someone else, eBay can do it. Next up, positives of a part-time job. Let's talk about those for a moment. So you go get this job and maybe you make $12 an hour. And if you work 20 hours a week at that job, you're going to get paid 20 times $12. you're going to get dependable income per hour. Now, eBay is not always dependable. We'll get to the negatives and downsides here in a moment. But a part-time job is dependable. As long as you put in the hours and as long as the employer is, reputable and an honest employer, they're going to pay you what they agreed to pay you. You're going to make that amount of money. So if I put in this amount of time and energy, I'm going to get this much income back out of it. That's very comforting. Don't discount that. I don't know that I'm employable anymore, but of all the years that I was employed, I think by far that was the one thing I probably took for granted that's harder when you're self-employed because your income varies. But I probably took that for granted that, all right, I'm going to work for this company and they're going to pay me this amount of money if I put in this amount of work. And they did. So that can be a very comforting, real, huge positive for a lot of people. So don't discount that. Secondly, unless the business goes down, and by down, I mean they go out of business, they have a huge layoff, they're, whatever, something along those lines, the opportunity will likely continue to exist. Now, I don't think there is such a thing as job security because, that job is just some other employer's dream that you're part of, and they can do away with you for any or no reason in a lot of cases. And so there's not really job security, but assuming that you're not at risk of losing your job and assuming you're not at risk of being laid off or being fired, your security level is pretty high, for the most part. If you are part of a company that's been around for a while and seems to be run well and is profitable and is making good decisions, and you're a good worker there, you're doing what's asked of you, you're achieving the goals that they've set out for you in the time frame and the manner in which they do, you're likely to keep that job and just keep making money, right? I mean, that's a big, don't overlook that. I mean, that is huge because if you start a part-time gig on your own, you don't have some of that security. And we'll talk about these negatives here in a moment. But you have probably more security with some jobs than others. Some companies and others are some of the large companies, like the really large companies, you can definitely be laid off or let go. But remember, we're talking about a part-time job here, which, by the way, I mean, they do lay off part-time people, but a lot of companies, when it comes to laying off people, they lay off full-time people first because they're more expensive. They usually have benefits and so on. And the part-time work, they can just cut hours. So you may lose some of your income, but you don't lose the opportunity completely. But ultimately, a large company is not likely to go out of business. If you work for a multinational bank, for instance, is it conceivable they could go out of business? Yes, but it's not likely. And certain other companies would fall into that too. Now, smaller businesses that's a different story. But smaller businesses offer you different opportunities to develop probably a little bit more of a sense of loyalty with the owners if you're closer to them, whereas a large corporation, you're not likely to ever encounter the owners. So keep that in mind. All right, negatives. Everybody's favorite on YouTube, right? Go negative, Prof. You'll get ratings. Sorry, was that inappropriate? It might have been. Karen's not here. Nobody here to keep me in check. But before I get into the negatives, I'm just going to answer a couple of these comments because I just noticed them. Doing eBay has given me confidence in myself. I haven't earned an income in over 20 years and was feeling down, feeling great since started the reselling. That's awesome, Maggie. Congrats. Good for you. It's not too much work, just uncertainty. I know we'll get my paycheck twice a month like clockwork. Beth says, yeah, so some great comments here in the chat, guys. Please keep them coming. There's something to be said for getting up, putting on pants, and talking to adults. I agree with that, Kelly. Assuming the adults you're talking to are worth talking to for what it is you're trying to accomplish. And that's a whole nother story. But we'll get into that in another video. But let's talk about some of the downsides of eBay or reselling versus a part-time job. And if you guys have other negatives too, please share them in the chat. I'd love to hear them. went through some off the top of my head. eBay, a negative. It requires time to learn. No doubt about it. It's going to take you time to figure out how to navigate on the platform. It's going to take you time how to figure out to sell things, how to price things, how to source things, how to list things. It's going to take time. Nobody steps onto the platform day one and just knows everything there is to know about it and has it mastered. In fact, you'll never master it because it's always changing. So you're always going to have to invest some time to kind of keep up with current trends and current strategies and current, policies and rules, all these things. Now, some jobs are like that as well, but it's unusual. I mean, if you, for instance, we'll dumb this down some, but let's say that like you are running a cash register at a job you work. They may change the cash register. They may change some ways they do certain things, but ultimately a lot of the basic functions are the same. And no matter how much they change, it's not going to be a big difference usually. And because, equipment's expensive, it's expensive to train people. eBay changes a lot. Reselling changes a lot. I mean, it doesn't change a lot instantly, but it changes over, a fairly short period of time, quite significantly sometimes. This platform rises up in relevance. This one goes down. This market becomes better. This market becomes worse. The fee structures change. The way that you list things can change. Certain restrictions can come on. I mean, all sorts of things change in this reselling game on a fairly regular basis. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to spend time to continually be learning how to sell online. And that's just the way it goes. It requires capital. I mean, you're going to have to put money, you're going to have to take money out of your pocket or out of somebody's pocket and go buy things eventually. I mean, you're going to run out of things in your house. You can obviously sell things that you own first if you want, and if they're worth selling, but eventually you run out of that stuff, right? And you're going to have to go buy things. You're going to have to get things somehow. And that's going to require capital. It's going to require your travel time. It's going to require the actual money to buy the items. It's going to require your overhead in your office, or wherever you're working out of, your home, a bedroom, a desk in your living room, whatever it is you're doing. You're going to have some overhead cost. It's just like any other business. It has cost, and that cost ultimately is going to come out of you. Now, as you start to sell and you make money, you can continually keep reapplying that money back into the business, and hopefully just not, ever have to put any more in of your own. That should be your objective, in my opinion. If you start a business reselling, even if it is very part-time, have an initial seed round of money and try to never put any more of your own in it. I think that's always a worthwhile goal, because that way, you've had that one investment, but ultimately after that, the business is sustaining itself, which is a great place to be. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to spend money to make money, right? That's how the saying goes. And that's kind of true. Another big negative, and this is probably the one that's the biggest negative for most people who sell online. And I'd love to hear if you guys think it's the same or not. The biggest negative that I hear people talk about, and I honestly think it's a big negative for me too. I don't know if it's the biggest. I mean, I try not to put too many labels on things, but it's a big negative. It's a negative. Your sales are variable, which means your income you're going to get from this job, this business, will be variable as well. You may sell $500 one month and $1,000 the next month, and then $300 the next month. It can be all over the place, and it frequently is. Now, there are some ways to sort of get into a range of sales with certain techniques and tricks and tips you can use, and certain amounts of listings and average selling price and all these things. But ultimately, if you sell online, your income is going to vary. You're going to have great months, and you're going to have not so great months. You're going to have good weeks and not so good weeks, and great days and not so great days. Sorry, let me turn that down. Man, that was a lot of beeps. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that to me is one of the biggest negatives about selling online, is that your income varies. That makes planning your, like, let's say that you're using this money. We'll go back to your, why are you doing this? Let's say that you want to make, I don't know, maybe $500 a month to, pay off some expenses that are really hammering you right now. You're just short. And the first month you start selling and you make $200 and you're like, well, okay, it's okay. And then the next month you make 700 and you're like, yes, I'm ahead. Like you got a couple $100 to bank there, but really you needed 1,000 over those 2 months and you've made 700 or 900. So you're not quite ahead. And then the next month you make 400 and you're like, man, this is like all over the place. Like you're doing this with your sales. And that's pretty common for a lot of people to sort of experience. And if you can't handle that, selling online is probably not for you, because that will happen to you in different times of the year. Diane says, I'm dreading the summer slowdown. You're absolutely right. There's seasonality to this with certain types of items. Sometimes you're going to hit periods of the year where you don't get a lot of sales, and it sucks. I mean, it sucks. Like, because did you save up in the months when it was really good, for those lean times? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But ultimately you're going to have those slowdown periods and you're going to have those boom periods. You're going to hit November and, December and see a lot of times sales high in those 2 months because of fourth quarter spending and the way people buy things. And then January comes and it's like, where did they all go? Where did all the buyers go? They're nowhere to be found. So that's a very real negative, I think, for selling online. And no matter what platform you're on, you tend to see some variation over, the weeks and months and years that you're on that platform. So let's talk about some negatives for a part-time job. This was the biggest one for me. And this may or may not surprise you because, I think I'm a pretty easy to get along with person now, but that was not always the case because it's a long story. I'm not going to go into it. But when you have a job, you have to deal with employees and managers. You have to deal with a boss and you have to deal with other coworkers. And somebody said, hey, it's great to get up every day and go see the adults. Not always. Sometimes that's a big source of stress. And I can promise you, for those of you who haven't had a lot of jobs in your life, if you get a job, there will be somebody at some point you will not get along with who just doesn't like you because you're you. No other reason sometimes. And if you have kind of a difficult personality anyway, you are guaranteed to find it. I have this friend who he's in a group that I'm a part of, and he talks about jobs that he's had and he's gotten let go of and so on. And, there's always a sense in him that he was unfairly treated. But when you dig down underneath, that statement, you find that he always had these conflicts with people he worked with. And, the common denominator is him. He's the common denominator. He knows kind of on some level that his personality and the way he reacts to things causes conflict, the places he works. So he's always frustrated by, certain people and so on, because he just, that's kind of who he is. And it's always a struggle for him to sort of maintain these jobs and his working relationships because he's having conflict with people. And if you work somewhere, you're going to have conflict with someone, or you're going to be involved, or you're going to be around situations where other people are having conflict. And that's stressful. No doubt about it. Job stress, relationship stress, I think, is the toughest thing. Maybe stress with your kids is number 2, but job stress is right up there. And job stress will filter over into those 2 things as well if you have it. It is difficult because you're spending sometimes hours and hours and hours and hours a day or week with these people. And now all of a sudden, every time you go in, it's stressful. It's a fight. It's a conflict. That is not a great place to be in. So that can be a real negative of working somewhere, even part-time, doesn't matter. Another thing is you're not in control of the shifts you work. You're not in control of when they schedule you. You can give a job availability, And you can say, hey, I'm available Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Schedule me whenever you want in there. And maybe every other week or every other day, they schedule you from 2 to 5. Like, that's kind of a crazy, crappy shift. Like, going in for 3 hours is kind of like, and it's right in the middle of the day, and you can't always necessarily do things too much in the morning, but you've also got the late afternoon taken up, and then by the evening comes, it's later, and you're like, man, that's kind of you're not in control of that if you work for somebody. Like, they are going to ask you what your availability is, and they're going to have to make sure that still fits with their business needs. I ran into this in retail management all the time. We would hire someone, and they would have a certain availability. And we were like, great, you can work this and this and this. And like, yep, I can do it. No problem. And then after a week or two, inevitably, some of those people would come to you and say, hey, by the way, I've got these 47 things that I need to do on a weekly basis, and I'm going to need to restrict my availability on this day and cut it back over here and blah. And all of a sudden, now you've got this employee that fit in with your business needs, but now kind of doesn't. And now you have this potential for conflict. There's that word again, right? So what do? Like, you can ask them for additional availability. You may even have to let them go. You can just deal with it, but then that puts stress and pressure on your other employees because they have to pick up the slack. I mean, that gets tricky. And your employer and you as an employee, you have like the schedule, and what you work is always going to be a little bit of a conflict and stressful to some degree. So I think it's a real negative of working a job. It's nice to know what you have a schedule, but when you realize you're going to keep getting scheduled, that can be annoying. And then you have to go to your employer at some point and say, hey, I need to have some of this time off. They're like, well, you gave us this availability. And it's like, yeah, I know, but, and you go there, you start going down that rabbit hole of having a conflict with the schedule. Another negative of a job is you'll likely have to travel. And what do I mean by travel? You'll likely have to get up in the morning or the evening or afternoon, whenever you work, put on clothes, get in your car, maybe take a bus, a subway, whatever, and go to work. And then you're going to have to come home. And all that extra time, guys, when you're getting up, getting ready, traveling to work, coming back home from work, maybe decompressing from work a little bit, guess what? You don't get paid for that time. So your true hourly rate at a job is actually lower when you really think about it if you have to go into work, because you've got to add in all that time where you're getting ready and going there and then coming home. I mean, I've had people who have told me they've had like 1 hour commutes each way every week, and each day of a week, and like an hour back. That's 10 hours a week just to drive there and back. It's like, man, like your hourly rate just got, so you're getting paid for 40 hours, you're really working you're working a 50-hour week for 40-hour pay. That's not even counting the time to get ready or decompression time as well. So consider that. And also the last negative that I think most jobs have over working on reselling or selling on eBay or a platform, you don't control the money, folks. It's that simple. I heard this quote so long ago, and it's still so true. And it just simply goes like this. As long as someone else signs your paycheck, you are not in control of your financial destiny. And you're not. I don't care how far up a company you rise. I don't care how far you go. As long as there's someone above you in said company, at some point, at any point, they can decide to cut your pay, reduce your hours, take away your benefits, lay you off, or even terminate your employment. Your pay is not in your control when you work for someone else. And that, for me, became a deal breaker, because I finally realized that I am never going to be comfortable realizing I have to put up with this person's crap only because they're giving me a paycheck. And I thought, well, I'll just go somewhere else and I'll be happier there. No, not me. I mean, maybe you would be, But most jobs I went to, I realized I've always going to have that situation. And I didn't really have conflicts at work. I'm not really a conflict-driven person very often, but there were still a lot of things that went on that I didn't like and that I wanted to be done with, and I just couldn't do anything about them because I had no power, no control. Somebody said my last job offers 25 cents raise a year, which is not a lot, right? I mean, you don't have any control over what the value you're bringing to that company. And that's one of the nasty side effects of working for somebody else. In a lot of jobs, you may be made up to have a lot of integrity and work really hard and really put your all into it. And you get paid the same a lot of times if you do that, or you just go there and don't really care much and just sort of skate by. And that's another side effect of working for other people. A lot of times it's not incentive based always in a lot of jobs, and there's no real impetus to strive and achieve. And I know there's exceptions to that. There are companies that do a great job about incentivizing their employees, but I like, and Beth says it great. She says, I love my boss. I'm the only employee. I'm in a good place. Yeah, I am the boss and the employee. So I get to decide, what happens to me. I get to decide what I get paid. It's based on my efforts. It's not based on some other arbitrary, I don't have a review at the end of the year that somebody's given me and said, well, you did above average here and here you're about at. Doesn't matter. I just think that, for all those reasons, a part-time job has, there's definitely some negatives to it. So, what do you think is the best approach? And, I hate binary decisions because I don't think life really has that many binary decisions. I don't think a lot of times you really have to choose. I think we talk ourselves into that to sort of make it simpler somehow or make it, easier on us. But the reality is you could do both. You could work part-time and you could resell. You could sell on eBay. And lots of people do and have, because then you have sort of the pros of the job and the pros of eBay, and you have the negatives too. But if one is driving you a little more crazy, you can always put more time and energy to the other one, theoretically, and, take up the slack. So I think that if you hedge your bets by doing that, you also reduce the risk that job is going to come to you one day and say, hey, we love you, but we got to fire you. And you also reduce the risk that eBay says, you use the word Velcro in your title and we're suspending you for 30 days. So, there's things that can happen in either situation that can hurt your earning potential, and you want to have a backup. So much of life, it's great to be all in with something, but I think you should be all in on developing, different streams of revenue just in case one goes bad, because it will. It will happen. Something you thought was great will collapse and not be so great, or you just can't do it anymore for whatever the reasons are. But you could just blend both. And I think that's a great way to get started. You could say, well, I got this little job and I'm only going to work 10 hours a week at it. That's all they really need me. And, I'm going to make a little bit of money there, not much, and then eBay, I'm going to throw up a few items and sell a few things and make a little bit there, not much, but together they meet your goal. They meet your objective. They and you can push one more than the other if you decide that, it makes more sense to you. So I guess I would recommend just, trying both of them in a lot of cases and just blend them together and see if that works for you. And if not, so that's kind of my thoughts, guys, on, selling on eBay or working part-time, some of the pros and cons of both. There's probably others we could mention, but I wanted to give you guys kind of my perspective about it. Some other people, or lots of great comments here. Certain things can't be. Yeah, with eBay, you have some control over that, but you still have to remember that if eBay says certain things can't be or will be, you're still kind of subject to that. Yeah, you absolutely are. that's why I think it's a great idea to consider, both approaches, because you don't want to, if one goes poorly, then, not so, you still got the other one to help. Working for yourself, you should do a yearly review to help improve your business. If you don't take an honest look at it, no one will. Yeah. And we talk about that. I've talked about it in a couple of videos, like year in, what are sort of your resolutions for your business, if you will? What are you going to do? What's sort of your plan for the next year? And maybe even reviewing it quarterly and monthly. I like to review monthly. I think that's enough time. Weekly is a little too crazy sometimes for me, but monthly is a good time of period. Monthly is a good time frame for me. And I find when I start reviewing things daily and weekly, I get caught up in the minutia and the details of it too easily, and then I lose focus from what I should be doing. So I actually create the problem I'm hoping to solve, which is somewhat ironic, I guess. I'm finding it harder and harder not to walk out on my job on a bad day. All right, so Will, you take less. I love that name, by the way. So Will, I would say to you, that's not a bad thing, but have a plan for when you do. Have a plan for when you decide to walk out. Don't just be running away from something, run to something, or walk to it rather. Walk away from the job and run to something else. Maybe that's the best way to look at it. And, you'll make it work. It's not and even if you had to go back and work for somebody, it's not the end of the world. You can do it. You can do that too. Deb says, I work 2 days a week part-time. The rest of the time I do eBay and Etsy. There's a perfect example of what we were talking about. Deb's all over it, just being able to, blend the two together and not having to choose eBay or reselling versus a part-time job. So lots of great comments here, guys. One quick note, and I mentioned at the top of the show, if you guys are enjoying this content, like button's great, but I'm going to ask you to click that little share button down below. It creates a link. You can post it on your favorite social media platform or somewhere for somebody that you think might need to see it or might be interested in it. So just click the share button. It generates a link. Share it wherever you like. And I really appreciate it. And you guys have been doing that. I've been seeing like the numbers and people have been sharing the videos, which I really appreciate. And hopefully, ironically, half the people who watch the videos on this channel are not subscribers, which is interesting to me. And that's not uncommon. So there's a lot of people out there who just kind of buzz in and see something and then come back out, and it's fine. Like there's not like a, and that reminds me that I'm speaking to more than just the subscribers. I'm speaking to other people too. So I take that I really take that seriously and try to do my best for them as well. Couple other things I want to share with you guys. I might do a little quick show and tell. So I had one of my consignment clients is sending me some items that they cannot sell anymore, or don't want to sell rather. And I thought I would share those. And they just showed up today, which was cool. So I will take you guys with me. Quick little show and tell. Isn't it great when inventory, for those out there who are resellers, just shows up? Like you're sitting there and like all of a sudden the UPS guy knocks on the door and like, hey, here's some inventory. And I'm like, yes, didn't pay for it. Didn't have to go get it anywhere. But you can see here on this baker's rack, this came in today, about 4 boxes earlier, a bunch of Nikes. So these are actually all the same shoe. So it'll be one listing with some variations. Although don't get me started on variations today. They're driving me crazy. And also some other things here. You see some Webkins that came in. This Pixar, I think this is Wall-E, the interactive robot. A Monopoly game from The Simpsons, I believe. And some, these are Disney little things. I don't know if that was a great thing. But I don't know how much those will all be worth. I mean, the Nikes, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of them. I don't know. They probably sell 50, 60 bucks a pop, 400, 500 some dollars. And then the other stuff, probably at least $600, $700 worth of stuff there. Love consignment for that reason. Stuff just shows up and you're like, all right, I guess I'll list this and sell it. And so I'm excited about that stuff coming in. There will be more of that coming, and that's kind of, the business model we're moving toward. um, yeah, I actually already answered that question, JR. They actually sent it UPS. So UPS is usually better if you're shipping. And those shoes had some weight to them. I think that box was about 23 pounds. So you definitely would not want to ship that. I don't think you'd want to ship that USPS. It would be kind of heavy or kind of expensive. But yeah, so a lot of consignment stuff there that came in. Excited about that stuff. More will be coming. I tell you guys, find a business where you don't have to go out and source the items. It will set you free. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Let me be clear about that. But I'm working on it. So that's going to be great. So the eBay open deadline is coming. It's just around the corner. I believe it's May 1st. And it's not a deadline for registration, but it's a deadline for the early bird special. And you basically are able to get your tickets for $275 instead of $399. So they jump up quite a bit. The eBay Open, for those of you who don't know, is a now annual event. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year they're doing it, where sellers, registered sellers, get together in Vegas for a 3-day conference of networking and seminars and workshops. They're at Mandalay Bay this year. It's going to be at, and they provide a lot of goodies, and they provide lunch and some other things like that. And there's like a party one night, but it's a good time, and it's a good opportunity to go learn from other people. Maybe to meet your favorite eBayers or YouTubers if they're there. And then, but basically just network with other people and connections. I think they probably have, a couple thousand people there. So it's a big event. And it's put on by eBay. So it's not put on by a specific reseller. It's put on by eBay itself. So they control the show. They run it. And it's in the 3rd week of July this year in Vegas. What could be better than the weather the 3rd week of July in Las Vegas, right? Not at all hot. So we are planning to be there. We have not bought our ticket yet because there was a couple of things we were still working out and ironing out. Not so much about the tickets, but something different. But we're planning to make that decision here at the end of this week. I think it's a 98% chance we're going. We're just there's a couple other things we had to sort of nail down and figure out first. So we should know about those pretty shortly. So I hope to see you guys there too. And if you guys are going to be there, we'll try to we'll create some sort of meetup or something for people who are on the channel. I don't know what we'll call it. And we'll get together. We'll take over Mandalay Bay. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll do something like that beforehand. We got some time for that. Are you moving towards 100% consignment? No, I say that. Would I be sad if I was? No, I don't think I would be. Like, here's what you get with consignment. Here's what you get. I mean, and there's things you have to give too. But with consignment, you don't have to spend your money to source things. So you free up capital. One of the questions that comes up for a lot of eBayers every month is like, how much do I keep out to buy things next month? It's a great question. Well, with consignment, you literally keep it all out because you don't have to give up any of it to buy things if you're doing 100% consignment. And you get your time back to source things. So you're not risking your capital and you're not spending your time to source things. Now, you still have the listing process. You still have the shipping and packing. You still have to deal with now an additional client, a customer, your internal client, which is your consigners. And then, of course, you have to deal with the buyers of your items on whatever platform you're selling it. But there are advantages. Don't get me wrong. And I like it. I mean, it's not perfect. You don't get as much per item for an item, but you're not risking money either. And you're not having things that sit for a long, long time and don't sell and tie up your capital because you didn't spend capital on them. You spent time, but you didn't spend capital. So I don't know that it's better or worse than any other model. I just think it's different. But I am by no means an expert. I'm not even an amateur at this point. So I don't know that there's all this validity in what I say. So don't, read too much into what I'm saying. Um, do you mean UPS is cheaper than USPS to ship a lot of weight? Yeah, it can be for sure. It depends on what you can put it in. Um, a little warm in the desert during July. Yeah, it is. Expect 100-degree plus weather in Las Vegas. Now it's not very humid, which is nice. So you don't sweat. You don't know you're dehydrating to death when you're in that heat. You're just, but you are. So make sure you drink plenty of water because even though you're not sweating, it's just evaporating before you feel the sweat on your skin. So very important to make sure that you're definitely drinking plenty of water while you're out there. You mentioned a couple months ago about partnering up with another reseller and combining your inventory. Was that the consignment business you now do? It is not. I was not consignment. I'm going to tilt this down a little. I just realized it's a little funky when I moved around. Consignment was not on our radar when we were talking about that partnership, and it came up afterwards. So, you just got to be adaptable, right? Adapt or die. And when opportunities present themselves, you got to jump on them. And we did. How many new YouTube subscribers do you hope to get by attending eBay Open? Is that one of your reasons for attending? I have no idea. I mean, do you think I would get new YouTube subscribers because I attended eBay Open? I don't know if I would or not. I mean, I think I would get new subscribers anyway, just by doing shows and putting out content. I don't know if the eBay Open subject matter will really, I think that'll connect with people who are already eBayers and maybe even know who I am and either already are subscribed or have decided not to subscribe for whatever reason. But I don't think it's really going to make a huge difference one way or the other. I could be wrong, but who knows? If you drop ship, it takes all of that away. Drop ship, it takes, yeah. So yeah, but drop shipping has its own set of challenges, right? You have to make sure you can get supplies and whatever. Let's see. If an item doesn't sell, do you send it back to consignor after a certain amount of time? That is a great question. So the short answer is maybe, but it depends on if the consignor wants it back. And there are other options like donating the item or taking the item down to a really low price, just trying to move it and get rid of it, potentially. But ultimately, they can request it back because the item stays. Here's something interesting about consignment, and I'm not a lawyer here, but I believe that this is legally accurate. For the most part, consigned inventory is not actually yours. It stays the property of the consignor. You are just housing it to sell it for them. So at any time, technically, they still have ownership of it. So it's always up to them. Let's see. But how do you charge for consignment? Well, you charge a fee, and you charge a fee when it sells. So you don't charge a fee up front. Usually you're taking the item in for free. You're taking a risk. I mean, you're risking your time to sell it, but you're not risking your capital, and you're not risking your time to source the items. So the consignor sends you the item, gives you the item, whatever, however you get it, and you say, great, I'm going to list this. I'm going to try to sell it, and if it sells, I'm going to charge you a fee. And the fee can be, I mean, it's all over the place. Like I don't really disclose to people. I don't really disclose to people necessarily what my fee is for specific people or specific situations, because every situation can be a little bit different. And, some consignors have a slightly different arrangement just based on, what it is they're selling and what we've negotiated. But you're going to take a percentage that makes sense for you. You're not risking your capital. They did to buy said item, but you are risking your time and energy. So you need to be compensated for that. Plus you're housing the item and shipping it. You're kind of doing what Amazon FBA does for the most part, because Amazon FBA says, hey, send us your item and we'll sell it on our platform for you and we'll pack it up and ship it. That's what they do. Amazon FBA. It's exactly what they do. And they charge you storage fees, which is a little different than consignment usually. Although you could argue if you tell your consignor, it's been 6 months and my item hasn't sold, do you want it back? Or else I'm going to start charging you storage fees. That could be in your contract with your consignor. If they say, no, I want you to keep trying to sell it, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to charge you a fee every month or whatever it doesn't sell. And obviously you want it to sell too, because you don't make money unless it sells. But Amazon FBA is very similar to consignment in a lot of ways. Just that they're charging you a fee when it sells. There's no fee to list it on Amazon FBA. You got to pay to ship it in, but it's not really that different. Do you ship all your items international? Yeah, but usually through GSP. We don't use anything else. It's all coming back to me. I worked 33 years at one company. More reason to work harder at this. Fabiola, I hear you. I mean, that's 33 years is a long time. I mean, that's a big chunk of your life to give to something. So you got to get something out of it that's worth it. So, that's just, make it worth it. Let's see. Lots of great questions here today. I found a discontinued Levi's velour sweatsuit made in the USA, but found no comps. Should I do auction or buy it now? I would do, a velour sweatsuit? I would look up other velour sweatsuits and see how the majority of them are selling. And the great thing is, if it's discontinued, there might not have been one sold for a while, so you can somewhat set the price. So, there you go. Let's see. Do you agree ahead of time on items you will accept to consign? Yes, to a degree. Like there's certain things I wouldn't consign because they wouldn't make sense from a consignment percentage point and the work I'd have to put into them. So usually what I like to do is look at like a dollar value. But that depends too, because, if you're selling, like if you sell this item and maybe it only sells for $5, I know it wouldn't even sell for that. But let's say it sells for $5. Like from a consignment standpoint, that doesn't make sense to list this and sell it. I mean, even if you took 100% as your fee, you'd only make $5. So, but now let's say that your consignor has 100 of these. So you can list one and, have $500 or, have $500 worth of potential sales. And then you're going to get some percentage of each one as it sells. And so you're only putting your time in for one, but you could sell a lot of them. That's where, quantity, like anything else, is the great equalizer. When you have quantity of something, your hourly rate goes up every time you sell one. So it's the same true for consignment too, I think. That's kind of my thought with it. So, all right, guys. Well, look, we're near the top of the hour. I think that's going to do it for this show. I want to thank you guys for coming out. I hope you guys got some great info. I know it was a lot of great people here and a lot of great questions. You guys are awesome, killing it. Once again, don't forget to share the video. That little button right down below the player. Just click on that share button. It creates a link, and you can share that link wherever you want on your social media or whatever. Maybe somebody who you think maybe somebody that's trying to debate about, should I sell online or work part-time? So maybe they would get some use out of it. So please do that. Please just share it wherever you think is appropriate, and I really appreciate it. Kaaren will hopefully be back on Friday, and we'll have another great show for you guys. So that's going to do it for today, guys. Take care. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. And as always, this is Prof Sales saying good sales to you.